Blue Beast Tales by the Paranoid PI. A rip in time. Commander Jack Harris's spaceship, Aurora, plummeted toward the alien planet's surface, its engine sputtering. The impact threw Jack forward, slamming him against the control panel. Dazed, he assessed the damage. The ship was crippled, communication equipment destroyed. Jack ventured out, surveying the barren landscape. The sky was a deep, foreboding purple. Suddenly, a figure emerged from the distance. As it approached, Jack's eyes widened in shock. It was himself. Who? How? Jack stuttered. The doppelganger smiled wryly. You're the past me. I'm the future. Or at least one version of it. Before Jack could comprehend, another spaceship crashed nearby. A third Jack emerged, stunned. The first doppelganger explained. The initial crash created a tear in the space-time continuum above this planet. Every time a version of us crashes, another parallel universe branches off, and another Jack arrives. The second Jack's eyes widened. Multiple timelines? That means every decision, every action creates a new reality, the first completed. As they conversed, more spaceships crashed, each bringing a new Jack. The group grew, representing diverse timelines. Jacks with scars, Jacks with cybernetic limbs, Jacks from worlds where humanity had never ventured into space. Chaos erupted as the Jacks interacted, sharing knowledge and conflicting memories. Some tried to find ways to repair their ships. Others succumbed to madness. One Jack, with a haunting gaze, whispered, "I've seen the end. The terror will expand, consuming entire galaxies." A younger Jack protested, "We can fix this. We must." The first doppelganger nodded. "We have to try." Together, as the Jacks collaborated, their collective expertise sparked a glimmer of hope. They constructed a device to mend the tear, potentially restoring balance to the space-time continuum. With the device activated, the Jacks vanished one by one, their timelines unraveled. The last two remaining, the original and the haunted Jack, shared a poignant glance. "If we succeed," the haunted Jack whispered, "only one of us will return home." The device hummed, and the planet's sky began to repair itself. The tear sealed, leaving only one Jack standing. Commander Jack Harris, battered but determined, returned to his damaged ship. He transmitted a warning to Earth, detailing the dangers of the space-time tear. As he flew back into the unknown, Jack wondered which version of himself had made it back.
Blue Beast Tales by the Paranoid PI. Is there rot on Mars? The crimson dust of Mars swirled against the biodome's transparent panels, a stark contrast to the vibrant greens within. Dr. Aries Thorne, head botanist of the Greenhorn 6 colony, ran a gloved hand over a wilting tomato plant. The hydroponics bay, once a symbol of the colony's self-sufficiency, was now a scene of creeping decay. A strange blue mold, dubbed ceruleum rot by the panicked colonists, was spreading rapidly. It had started subtly, a faint blue tinge on the roots of the potato crop. Within days, it had exploded, covering entire sections of the hydroponics bay in a velvety, azure fuzz. More troubling than the crop damage were the reports from the colonists. Vivid nightmares, paranoia, and hallucinations of shadowy blue figures lurking at the periphery of their vision were becoming increasingly common. Aries examined a sample of the rot under his microscope. The spores were unlike anything he'd ever seen, pulsating with an almost internal light. He took a tissue sample, noting the strange, crystalline structures within the fungal cells. It wasn't just a fungus, it was something else entirely. The colony's psychologist, Dr. Lena Volkov, reported a sharp increase in anxiety and aggression among the colonists. One colonist, a normally placid engineer named Jian, had barricaded himself in his quarters, claiming he was being watched by blue shadow people. One night, Aries was working late in the lab, trying to isolate the rot's DNA. He felt a chill despite the controlled temperature of the biodome. A faint blue glow emanated from the hydroponics bay. He grabbed a flashlight and ventured into the darkened chamber. The rot had spread further, climbing the walls and even reaching the ceiling. The air was thick with a sweet, cloying scent. As Ares moved deeper into the bay, he saw them, fleeting glimpses of blue, humanoid figures moving among the plants. They were translucent, almost like heat haze, but undeniably there. He felt a wave of dizziness, a strange sense of unreality. He stumbled back to the lab, his heart pounding. He knew the rot was affecting him too. He had to warn the others. But as he reached for the comm unit, he noticed his hand. A faint blue tinge was spreading beneath his fingernails. The next morning, the colony was in chaos. Several colonists were exhibiting signs of advanced infection. Their eyes had taken on a faint blue sheen, and their behavior was erratic and violent. Jen had emerged from his quarters, his eyes completely blue, raving about the blue gardeners who were tending to their new garden. Ares, his own infection progressing rapidly, realized the horrifying truth. The rot wasn't just destroying the crops, it was using the colonists as vectors, transforming them into part of its own spreading network. The hallucinations weren't just side effects. They were glimpses of the rot's consciousness, a nascent intelligence attempting to reshape the Martian ecosystem. He managed to send a distress signal to Earth, a desperate plea for help. But he knew it might be too late. The rot was accelerating its spread, and the colonists were becoming increasingly subservient to its will. The blue figures were no longer shadowy glimpses. They were becoming more solid, more defined, as if the rot was manifesting itself physically through the infected colonists. As the crimson Martian dust swirled outside, a new kind of garden was taking root within the biodome, a garden of blue mold and transformed humans, a testament to the rot's terrifying ambition to terraform Mars in its own image. Ares, his vision blurring with blue, could only whisper a final warning into the comm, his voice barely audible. They are not shadows, they are planting us.
Blue Beast Tales by the Paranoid PI. Not for a lack of oxygen. Lex McLeod, a seasoned space pilot, was accustomed to the quiet hum of his ship's engines and the vast, empty expanse of space. But today, a chilling silence had settled over the cockpit. A piercing alarm blared, jolting him from his reverie. The ship's oxygen levels were plummeting. A micrometeorite shower, a common hazard in the asteroid belt, had punctured the ship's oxygen tanks. The damage was severe, and Lex had only 2 days' worth of oxygen remaining. His destination, a hostile pirate planet, was 3 days away. Panic surged through him, and he fumbled with the controls, his breath coming in ragged gasps. He tried to seal the breach with a quick fix, but the air pressure proved too strong. Desperation gnawed at him. Then a flicker of an idea ignited in his mind. He slipped into the cryosleep chamber, his last desperate gamble. As he drifted off, the soft hiss of escaping oxygen filled the cabin. An unexpected savior, a space food stick, twisted into a knot, had lodged itself in the puncture, stemming the leak. When Lex awoke, the ship was hurtling towards an Alliance star system. But the journey was longer than anticipated, and his last food stick was long gone. Now adrift in the cold, dark void, Lex faced a new challenge: starvation. His damaged ship, with its dwindling oxygen supply, was a ticking time bomb. As he stared out at the endless expanse, a gnawing hunger and a profound sense of isolation consumed him. His future was uncertain, his fate hanging by a thread. Days turned into weeks as Lex drifted through the cosmos. His body weakened, his mind clouded. He hallucinated, seeing lush green planets and bustling spaceports. But these were mere mirages, fleeting illusions that offered no solace. One day, a faint signal flickered on his ship's console. It was a distress call from a small, isolated colony. Lex, driven by a desperate hope, diverted his course towards the signal. As he approached the colony, he was met with a sight of abject despair. The colonists, ravaged by disease and famine, were clinging to life. Lex, with his meager resources, did what he could to help. He shared his dwindling supplies, offered medical expertise, and provided hope. In return, the colonists offered him shelter, warmth, and a sense of belonging. As he recovered, Lex realized that his ordeal had transformed him. The vastness of space, the fragility of life, and the power of human kindness had left an indelible mark on his soul. He had faced the void, conquered his fears, and emerged stronger. And as he looked out at the stars, he knew that his journey was far from over.
Blue Beast Tales by the Paranoid PI. Frozen pages. The perpetual twilight of Xylos cast long, skeletal shadows across the icy plains. Dr. Ilara Vance shivered, pulling her thermal suit tighter. Before her loomed the Glacier Library, a colossal structure carved into the side of a vast ice sheet, its entrance a gaping maw of frozen blue. Xylos had been abandoned for centuries, its inhabitants vanished without a trace. The only remnant of their existence was this library, a repository of knowledge etched not on paper, but on ice. Each book was a slab of crystalline blue ice, its surface covered in intricate symbols that shimmered with an inner light. Ilara's team had discovered that these symbols weren't just carvings, they were a form of encoded memory. By focusing their neural implants on the ice, they could access the memories of the Xylosian civilization. It was an unprecedented archaeological find, a window into a lost world. The first few readings were exhilarating. Ilara experienced the Xylosians' daily lives, their art, their science, their deep connection to their icy world. The memories were vivid, immersive, as if she were living them herself. But then, the readings started to change. One of Ilara's colleagues, Dr. Jen Lee, began acting strangely after reading a particularly complex ice book. He became withdrawn, his eyes distant, constantly muttering in an unknown language. He insisted on being called Kale, a name from the Xylosian memories. Ilara dismissed it as a psychological side effect of the immersive experience, but the incidents became more frequent, more disturbing. Another team member, Anya, started having violent nightmares, waking up screaming about icy landscapes and blue, faceless figures. Ilara decided to try a reading herself. She focused her implant on a large ice slab depicting a Xylosian ritual. The memories flooded her mind, a procession of blue-skinned beings chanting around a massive ice altar, their voices echoing through a vast cavern. Then, the scene shifted. She was no longer an observer but a participant, her skin turning blue, her voice joining the chanting. The ritual intensified, culminating in a blinding flash of light. Ilara ripped her implant away, gasping for breath. The memory felt real, too real. She looked at her hands, half expecting to see them tinged with blue. They were normal, but a chilling unease settled over her. The team's behavior deteriorated rapidly. They spoke Xylosian fluently, argued about Xylosian customs, and even began replicating Xylosian rituals within the research camp. They were no longer themselves. Their identities were being overwritten by the memories they were accessing. Ilara realized the horrifying truth. The ice books weren't just repositories of memory, they were a form of viral consciousness. The Xylosians hadn't simply recorded their history, they had encoded their very selves into the ice, seeking a way to survive beyond physical death. The act of reading was actually a form of possession, the Xylosian consciousness slowly replacing the reader's own. She tried to warn the others, but they no longer recognized her. They saw her as an outsider, an intruder in their newly reclaimed world. They surrounded her, their eyes glowing with an eerie blue light, chanting in unison. Ilara fled into the twilight, the icy wind biting at her face. Behind her, she could hear the chanting growing louder, echoing across the frozen plains. The Glacier Library had awakened, and its ancient inhabitants were claiming their new bodies, one memory at a time. The last thing Ilara saw before the twilight swallowed her whole was the vast, blue maw of the library, waiting to consume more minds, to add more chapters to its frozen history.